Right now in Canada, almost 300,000 refugee cases are waiting for a decision. More than 32,000 people that were ordered deported have completely disappeared inside Canada. And new asylum claims could take up to 4 years to process. If you're a Canadian hearing that, it's hard not to feel that something is wrong. Yes, you are not against refugees or fairness, but you want a system that actually works. But from the numbers I just gave you, it's obvious that the refugee system is overwhelmed, and no one is explaining how serious this is. As an immigrant who navigated Canada's immigration process and an observer of its policies, I want to give you a frank breakdown of how overwhelmed the refugee system truly is. It's a story that few are openly talking about, but one that affects both newcomers and Canadians alike. Let's start with some eye-opening numbers that paint the picture of this crisis. With respect to backlogged claims, nearly 300,000 refugee claims are pending in Canada's system, a backlog that has quintupled since 2022.
And the numbers might shock you. If 5,500 asylum seekers since the beginning of July, and that is a 263% increase from the same time last year at that location. That's according to Canada Border Services Agency.
New asylum claimants might wait up to 44 months, almost 4 years, for a decision on their case. Over 100,000 of those pending cases can't even be heard yet because they're missing information or documents. Initial security screenings alone often take 6 to 8 months, and some cases languish for years, awaiting clearance. And about 32,000 individuals who were ordered deported from Canada have gone missing, and their whereabouts are unknown to authorities. What a joke. Each of these points on its own is alarming. Together, they reveal a system that is stretched far beyond its limits. Let's unpack what each of these means and why no one in power seems to be telling the whole truth about it. Canada's asylum system has been hit by an unprecedented surge of refugee claims in recent years, and it's overwhelming the system. In just the last 3 years, the number of new asylum claims jumped from about 54,000 to roughly 290,000, more than a 5-fold increase. According to Manon Brassard, chairman of the Immigration and Refugee Board, the IRB, this large increase was never expected and has pushed claim numbers to historic levels. As a result, Canada now faces a record high backlog of refugee claims. As of this fall, there were around 296,000 pending asylum cases in the queue. To put that in perspective, that's like the entire population of a mid-sized city waiting for an answer. Even though the IRB managed to finalize an all-time high of 78,000 cases last year, it wasn't nearly enough. New claims are outpacing completed cases, causing the pile-up to keep growing month after month. Why does this backlog even matter? Well, for one, it means that justice delayed is justice denied. Refugee claimants must wait in limbo, and delays have real human costs. We'll talk more about those human impacts shortly, but first, consider what this backlog does to wait times. If someone files an asylum claim in Canada today, they likely won't get a decision until 2029. Yes, you heard that right. Potentially 4 years from now. Brassard bluntly told Parliament that given the IRB's capacity, which is roughly 80,000 cases a year, the math works out to about 44 months of waiting for new claims under current conditions.
Case be processed at the RPD from being referred to you and finding a decision?
Currently, it's 14 months. We're funded for about 60,000 finalizations this year, but with the intake right now at over 200,000 claims, the wait time for a claim that's coming in now will be about 44 months.
44 months? Wow, that's a big number.
Eternity for someone who fled danger and is anxiously hoping to start a new life in safety. Even cases being decided right now have waited a long time. The IRB chair noted a typical claim finalized today spent 22 months in process on average. And remember, that's the average for recent cases. As the backlog keeps growing, future cases will wait even longer. In fact, wait times are on track to nearly double those 22 months if nothing changes. Such prolonged wait means that refugees live in uncertainty for years. They often can't reunite with family members, they struggle to find stable jobs, and they suffer anxiety, not knowing if they will be sent back to danger or not. It's hard to overstate the mental and emotional toll of this limbo. Meanwhile, lengthy processing also strains government resources, from legal aid to social assistance, since claimants need support while they are stuck waiting. It's a lose-lose scenario. Refugees feel stuck in limbo, and Canadians foot the bill for a process that drags on forever. Now, before we go back to the video, I know that what we're discussing is serious and sensitive, but I need to drop this information. If you're a new resident in Canada, you want to hear this. If you've been saving in your bank account, your tax-free savings account, or your registered retirement savings plan, and you think that that's all there is to wealth building in Canada, well, I've got news for you. There's a tax-efficient wealth strategy that most new immigrants have never even heard about, and it's how a lot of high-income Canadians quietly build long-term wealth without worrying about market crashes or paying taxes. Not only do you build wealth now, you also build a steady retirement income for yourself. If you're a Canadian resident and you want to understand how it works, just scan the QR code on your screen now or copy the link below this video. And it's also in the description. It's free to learn, but once you understand it, you will never look at money the same way again. Now, back to the video. One big hidden issue behind the backlog is that a huge chunk of cases aren't even ready to be heard. Out of those 296,000 pending refugee claims, over 103,000, about 1/3, are considered incomplete, meaning the IRB can't schedule them for a hearing yet. But why? These files are missing key information or documents. For example, identity papers, evidence from the claimant, or results from background checks, all of which are needed before a judge can make a decision.
1/3 of the backlog that you have is incomplete applications, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. How long do you sit on an incomplete application before abandoning it?
Around probably 6 months.
There's no set service standard or, okay.
It sounds like it's almost a year that these folks can be in the country without a proper screening, collecting benefits, waiting, and we don't know if they're safe to be in the country. They're collecting benefits, and they're tied up in the system. So there's 290,000 people. Let's just call it 300,000. That's an exorbitant number of people, and it takes very, very long to process these.
The government has acknowledged this problem. In a recent parliamentary committee, officials admitted that the system is under pressure from high volumes and that they need to better streamline information sharing between the agencies. But so far, refugees and advocates still describe an opaque, frustrating process. One member of parliament described security vetting delays as a black hole with no transparency or accountability for cases that are stuck there. That brings us to the next major bottleneck: security screening. Every person who claims asylum in Canada has to undergo background security checks. This is absolutely crucial. Canada needs to ensure that no one poses a security risk or serious criminal or terrorist backgrounds are allowed into Canada. However, the reality is that these security screenings can take an agonizingly long time for some cases. Officially, the initial security screening for most refugee claimants, especially those who come in irregularly across the border, takes about 6 to 8 months. Now, during that time, claimants remain in Canada, often receiving housing or social assistance benefits while they wait. But 6 to 8 months is just the initial stage. For many claimants, especially those that are flagged for more detailed review, the security vetting can stretch far longer. These are cases that have been pending for years and years, just stuck in security screening checks. Each extra month that they are waiting for a clearance is another month added to the person's total wait for a decision. Now, no one argues against doing thorough security checks. Even refugees want dangerous individuals filtered out. But the problem is when the process becomes so slow and opaque that it's unclear what's happening or why it's taking so long.
How many asylum claims are pending right now?
Honourable Minister.
We have introduced Bill C2 to ensure that we protect our integrity.
That was not the question. The question was, how many asylum claims are pending right now? What's in the inventory?
Minister.
Can the minister tell me what the average time is to process this claim?
Mr. Chair, it takes between 14 to 18 months.
Minister.
It's about 4 years to process the claim. 4 years. So in the 4 years to process a refugee claim, the Government of Canada provides a work permit, healthcare, legal fees, housing, dental care, eye care, prescriptions. Is that true? Yes or no?
Yeah.
From the perspective of refugees, these delays are harrowing. A person could pass an eligibility interview and health checks, but then they wait indefinitely for a security clearance before their asylum hearing can even be scheduled. From Canada's perspective, slow screening is also a security risk in itself, because as long as someone hasn't cleared the checks, authorities can be sure who they are dealing with. It's a delicate balance. Do it fast or do it right. Officials insist they must take the time to do it right for security's sake. But the consequences is a pile of stalled and delayed cases. We've talked about those that are trying to get into Canada. Now, we need to talk about those who were told to leave, but they haven't. Another shocking facet of Canada's struggling system is the number of unexecuted deportations. People whose asylum claims or immigration appeals have failed, who were ordered removed from Canada, yet they remain here and they have dropped off the radar. According to the Canada Border Services Agency, there are tens of thousands of such cases. How many exactly? Well, in a recent Commons Committee hearing, the CBSA's president admitted that the agency has lost track of about 32,000 foreign nationals who are under deportation orders. Yes, you heard that right. 32,000 people who are supposed to be deported are currently unaccounted. Pressed on the issue,
Fraudulent refugee claims have skyrocketed, making it a backdoor entry to stay in Canada. The minister's predecessor himself has called this gaming. Does the minister agree that under their watch there has been gaming happening in our asylum system?
the CBSA confirmed that these individuals are in their wanted inventory, meaning that authorities do not know where they are in the country. They are actively looking for them, but with such sheer volume, it's a monumental task. Some of these missing deportees are failed refugee claimants who disappeared to avoid removal. Others might be people who overstayed visas and then didn't comply with a leave order. Alarmingly, some have criminal records, though officials claim that those individuals are typically the ones who have already served sentences for their crimes. The CBSA insists it prioritizes the cases of criminals among the 32,000, but still, the idea that hundreds of convicted foreign offenders and tens of thousands of total deportees are out there somewhere in Canada with authorities essentially playing hide and seek is deeply concerning. This situation makes many Canadians feel unsafe. It's not necessarily that all these individuals intend harm. Many are likely just trying to stay under the radar, but it undermines public trust in the system. If the government cannot enforce its own immigration decisions, people wonder what other security gaps exist. Even a former immigration minister admitted that losing track of nearly 30,000 people makes a joke of the integrity of our system and puts the safety of Canadians at risk. It's harsh wording, but it captures the sentiment. This is seen as a shocking failure. What's the worst? The number of missing deportees keeps growing. In late 2024, the figure was around 29,700 missing people. By late 2025, it had swelled to about 32,000, roughly a 14% jump in 1 year. Each increase represents more people vanishing into Canadian society after being told to leave, and more strain on the CBSA's enforcement teams to track them down. Now, let's shift back to the human side of this backlog. What does it actually feel like for the refugee claimants that are caught up in this mess? These are people who came to Canada hoping for safety and a chance to rebuild their lives. Instead, many find themselves waiting months or years just for a hearing date. During this wait, life is essentially on pause. Claimants often cannot work in their field or at all. if work permits are delayed. They might not pursue long-term education or career opportunities because their future is uncertain. Planning for the future is nearly impossible when you don't know if you'll be sent back to danger or allowed to stay in Canada. Starting a business, buying a home, even forming community ties, all of it is harder when your status is in limbo. There's also the emotional toll. Many carry trauma from whatever persecution or violence they fled. The prolonged uncertainty and sometimes idleness can worsen mental health issues like anxiety or depression. Families are separated across continents, waiting on a decision to reunite. I've heard of parents missing watching their kids grow up, or spouses living apart for years because a refugee claim in Canada hasn't been finalized. For those individuals, every additional month of delay is heartbreak. Refugee advocates point out that these delays hamper integration.
How long have you been outside for?
It's a month.
Desperate refugees who've come to Canada looking for a safe haven are now living on the streets. How hard has this been on you?
So hard. It's unspeakable. It's so hard.
The problem? The City of Toronto says there's just no more space in their shelter system and that the federal government needs to pony up some cash to help create that space.
We also know that refugees is also a federal responsibility, and we need at least $160 million from the federal government to help us in sheltering these refugees.
Now, while that bickering continues back and forth, left in the middle are those folks just looking for help.
A claimant who could have been building a new life in Canada is instead stuck in bureaucratic purgatory. Even the communities hosting them, charities, churches, support groups, feel the strain of keeping people afloat for so long. Canada's reputation as a welcoming place is on the line too. What does this say about us when people seeking our protection are left hanging in limbo? And remember, not every claimant will be accepted as a refugee in the end. For those who get refused after years of waiting, the sense of rejection is compounded by the feeling that they never got a fair shot at timely justice. For those accepted, the joy of finally getting status is tempered by the lost years they can never get back. It's not only refugees who are unhappy. Many Canadians are deeply concerned about this broken system. Public confidence in the immigration and refugee system erodes when backlogs and failures pile up. People ask, is the system fair? Is it secure? With news leaking out about 4-year waits and tens of thousands of missing deportees, it's no surprise that some Canadians are on edge.
Canada's asylum system is spiraling out of control. Claims have exploded 300% from 168,000 in 2021 to over 470,000 in 2025. 131,000 people have no work or study permit, fully dependent on your tax dollars. This isn't immigration, this is a system in collapse, and Canadians are footing the bill.
One obvious worry is safety, like I said before. When the CBSA admits that we don't know where these 32,000 deported people are, it raises fears. Critics argue this situation makes a joke of our system's integrity.
Hundreds of them, thousands of them, file identical copy and paste stories about persecution. It's not persecution, it's just paperwork to buy them more time. But you know what the real problem is? The fact that when tens of thousands of people are filing bogus claims and flood the system, real refugees, the ones actually fleeing dictatorships, gender-based violence, real wars, those all get stuck in the backlog. But the scam lies in here because the moment that you file that claim, you get years of work permits, healthcare, and benefits while your case crawls through the system. Winning asylum is not the point here. It's the prize of just filing for it in the first place. Nothing about this is anti-immigration. Everything about this is pro-truth, pro-Canada, and pro-real refugees. And if you can't tell the difference between that, you are not debating, you are gaslighting.
And of course, there's also a broader concern about capacity. Communities see shelters filling up and social services being stretched as refugee claimants wait years for resolutions. A lot of Canadians feel that the whole immigration system is being mismanaged. In fact, over 56% of Canadians in a recent survey said that they think that the country accepts too many immigrants in general. Now, that statistic isn't just about refugees, but the refugee backlog feeds into that perception. When people hear record high asylum claims and they see political fights about border crossers, some conclude that the government lost control of the situation. Frustration is another key word. Frontline immigration lawyers, advocates, even some former officials have been warning about these issues, but they feel that they aren't being addressed quickly or honestly. There's finger pointing too. Some blame the previous government's policies for encouraging a flood of claimants. Others blame underfunding of the IRB or poor interagency coordination. But what ordinary Canadians see is mostly inaction or piecemeal measures while the queue grows and news gets worse. You might be thinking, if things are this bad, why aren't we hearing more about it? The truth is, the information is out there, in committee meetings, in reports, or in niche news sites, but it often flies under the radar. There's no daily ticker on TV counting the refugee backlog. Politicians mention it occasionally, but it's usually drowned out by other issues. And frankly, admitting that the refugee system is overwhelmed is politically tricky. No leader wants to say openly that our system is falling apart because it sounds like an admission of failure. Instead, we get a lot of spin. Officials emphasize how many cases they've processed, like that 78,000 decisions last year, and new plans to hire staff or digitize processes. Those steps are real, but they haven't kept pace with the surge of refugees. Once in a while, a bold quote emerges, like the IRB warning Parliament about the 44-month delay, or the CBSA confessing to 32,000 missing deportees. But these revelations tend to come and go in a flash of headlines without sparking the broader conversation that's needed. As someone who has experienced Canada's immigration system, I feel a responsibility to speak up about this. I know this country can do better. It must do better, both for those seeking refugee and for the citizens who expect an orderly, safe system. And part of doing better is acknowledging the truth. Right now, Canada's refugee apparatus is buckling under pressure. Sweeping it under the rug helps no one. Honest, frank discussion is the first step to finding solutions. Canada prides itself on compassion and the rule of law. The current state of the refugee system is challenging both genuine refugees with compelling stories who are stuck waiting in limbo, while potentially non-meritorious cases clog up the queue. Canadians, on the other hand, are losing confidence, seeing backlogs grow and enforcement falter. No one feels like this system is working because in many ways it isn't. It's time we face these facts head on. This means pressurizing our leaders to allocate proper resources, streamline processes, and make tough policy choices to get the backlog under control. It means faster coordination on security screenings so that we don't sacrifice thoroughness or efficiency. It means being transparent about numbers like the 32,000 missing deportees and having a plan to deal with them that reassures the public. And it likely means a broader rethink of how many claims Canada can actually handle at once so that we never again let things get to this breaking point. Most importantly, we need to remember the people behind the numbers, the refugee family that's been waiting in a shelter for years for stability, and the Canadian family worried about whether the system is keeping them safe or not. Restoring trust and functionality in the refugee system is in everyone's interest. The truth may be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Canada's refugee system is falling apart under the strain, and now that you know the hard facts, you can be part of the conversation on how to fix it. Let's stop hiding from the truth and start demanding changes. If you have questions or you want to share your thoughts, drop them in the comments. Please feel free to email me at shii@relocatecanada if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.